I'll tell you in a year's time, but 2022 may have been the end of family caravanning as we know it. Hey everyone, really warm welcome back to the channel, and technically Happy New Year. Yeah, still just about January, isn't it? But this is the first video I've made this year, so a very Happy New Year to you. I hope you had a lovely Christmas, New Year break. That seems like forever ago, because January rolls on for ages and ages, doesn't it? Anyway, because this is the first video I've made this year, no, it's the first video I've made since the October show. I'm a bit rusty at talking to the camera, so I've made myself a nice little post-it note list of things I want to talk about. What I want to do in this video is give you a bit of an update, let you know where we're going in terms of caravanning as a family and so on, and let you know what's coming up on the channel for 2023. And yeah, that's what the purpose of this video is. So 2022, I managed to make at least one video a week. During those show weeks I managed to get a few more out, so very proud of myself about that. But then I've fallen off a bit of a cliff, haven't I, for 2023. I've been crazily busy with work since directly after the show. Actually, I think it was a day or two after the show finished that things really skyrocketed in terms of the projects I was doing and the time that work needed. And that's great, you know. For those who've been following the channel for a while, you know I work for myself and I really enjoy what I do, working with academic researchers. So it is fantastic that work has been so busy since the end of October, beginning of November, but it doesn't mean I've neglected you guys a bit, so apologies about that. And to everybody who's come along and subscribed since that time, because actually there are quite a few of you, so hello. It still amazes me that over 1,000 people at this point want to hear me whittering on, so you are very welcome indeed, all of you. It is wonderful to have you subscribed to the channel, so thank you very much for doing that. If you're watching and not subscribed already, there's a little button down there. I never get this mirroring right. Such a pro, you see. Do subscribe. It would be fantastic to have you along for the ride, and really appreciate you guys all being here. So if you're new around here, I'm Becky, hence the name of the channel, Caravanology with Becky. By training I'm a scientist, so hence the ology bit on the end. And I like to do science experiments in the caravan. I like to try and put some myths to rest sometimes. You know, I love mythbusters, so occasionally we get a bit of science myth busting around the caravan. But I started caravanning because I've got two boys. They've been taller than me for a few years. They're enormous, great big teenagers now, and we'll come back to them later. Do excuse my phone, that's very professional as well, isn't it? So I've got two teenagers, and 6 years ago now we bought this caravan. We traded up from, first of all we had a folding camper, which was fantastic when they were little, and then we had a trailer tent, because although it was sort of going backwards in terms of technology and facilities, the space it offered was the thing we needed at the time. The trailer tent was an absolute disaster. It was a nightmare. It was supposed to be a beautiful premium trailer tent, and it just leaked. So every time we used it, except when it was middle of summer and no rain, the boys woke up soaking because the tent leaked between the main compartment and the boys' compartment. Anyway, it was an absolute disaster in terms of stress on us, because we'd spent a lot of money on a new one, and the dealership was not at all helpful. Let's leave it at that. You can go back and watch the video if you want to. I'll put a link up above to it. Anyway, we bought this caravan 6 years ago now, or it will be in a week or two's time. And since then, I've mostly been taking the boys off on my own. So I've been the main caravanning person in our family. I am married. If you watch closely the videos, you'll see my husband, Mike, who's the absolute love of my life, hiding in the background in a few of them. He is wonderful, but he doesn't like to be on video, so he doesn't appear in these things very often. But you'll catch him once in a while. Once in a while I've got the camera pointing and he doesn't shout at me. Stop pointing the camera at him that much. Anyway, Mike's in the background there somewhere. But he doesn't like the caravanning life, really. You know, he's quite happy when it's sunny and lovely and warm and he can barbecue. But he doesn't really like being cooped up in a small space with our children. So I just got on with it on my own, really. And that's what the channel started as. How I was getting on, you know, my whole learning curve of what I was doing around the caravan and so on. So yeah, but we are now if you've been watching the channel for a while, certainly throughout probably if you started watching us from sort of 1920, 2021 onwards, you will have detected a big change, I think, in 2022, because amongst all of those videos that I put out, as I said, about once per week, I think there was just one family holiday. So we went off to the Peak District and to Yorkshire, all four of us, for Easter in 2022, and that was great fun, actually. So we took the caravan, went up to York. We stayed on the Roundtree campsite right in the city centre, which was fantastically convenient. So we did a city break for 3 or 4 nights, and then we came south slightly into Derbyshire, and we did the Peak District there, specifically so we could ride the Monsal Trail. So that was, what's that, 20 odd miles, sort of up and down old disused railway track, which was fantastic. So we rode that as a family. And we stayed on a CL right at the end of the Monsal Trail. Now, it was geographically right at the end, but there was a very big hill between the campsite and the Monsal Trail, so that was quite interesting, trying to get all 4 bikes down there, including my very heavy electric bike, which is a fantastic bike. Buy an electric bike if you're getting into middle age like me. That is just brilliant for keeping up with teenagers. Anyway, we did that, and that was good fun. But for a couple of years, it's been very clear, I think, that the oldest one, who's now doing his A-levels, so he's getting on towards 17, he's like his dad. He hasn't been that keen on the outdoorsy-ness and going anywhere in the caravan. He sort of put up with it because when he was small, he just had to, because that's what we were doing. But in recent years, we've had a lot more moaning, and now he's getting to that point where you can't just tell him to get on with it, really. So that was clearly coming to that point where he wasn't enjoying it so much. But I could rely on my youngest one up until last year. He's much more outdoorsy. You know, we did a trip as soon as lockdown was lifted back in 2020. You know, we were straight out the door, me and him, and we just had a mummy and son outing to a CL in Oxfordshire, and we took the kayaks and we just camped up directly on the river edge, and we put the kayaks in, and we had a great time together. Anyway, I could usually rely on him to keep doing the caravanning thing, but even he now he's 13, and he's now copying Big Brother and saying he doesn't want to go anywhere. So we made them go last Easter for one trip, but I strongly suspect, we'll see how 2020 I can't even talk now, we'll see how 2023 pans out, but I strongly suspect Easter 2022 may have been our last trip together as a family, which is a bit depressing. Would have been nice if we could have got the caravan, 10 years ago, or even when the oldest was young, so 15, 16 years ago, that would have been better. But anyway, things are what they are, and we made the most of it while we could. But I suspect 2022 was our transition year, so we got one family holiday out. You'll have seen, though, that back this time last year, possibly slightly before, I decided that I got to that point as a mum where you realise that you've lost yourself in amongst being a mum and looking after everybody else. You kind of lose who you are as an individual and what you enjoy doing, and actually doing those things. So at this point last year, I realised that actually the boys were old enough that we could be a little bit more flexible. They didn't have to have one of us around all the time. I mean, obviously, they're too young. Well, the youngest one's too young to leave on his own overnight or anything like that, but we didn't have to be picking them up from school and all the rest of it, and they'd settled into that perfectly well for the last couple of years. So I've been a lot more flexible, both with the work I do. Sometimes I have to be away at conferences and overnight for that, but also I decided this time last year I was going to do some stuff for me. So there are a few trips now that I've done either with the caravan or with just the VW van. So February last year I went off for my first solo retreat. I'm lucky in that I work for myself, as I said, so sometimes if I don't have face-to-face client meetings, I can just take my laptop with me and just go and work somewhere else, just on the laptop. As long as I've got Wi-Fi, I'm fine. So that's what I did last February. Took the caravan off, I went to buy myself this electric bike, and I combined it with a couple of days of retreat where I worked on a new product that I was working on for my own company that I run for myself, and that was fantastic. So that was the first one. Then I took myself off to the show. And then I wanted to do another one in March, but I'm not sure what happened in March. Probably there was lots of school stuff, or I had lots of sort of face-to-face client meetings, so I couldn't do that. But then in August, I took myself off for an entire week with just the VW van, which is mainly a day van, but it converts to an occasional camper. So for one person, it's perfectly comfortable, especially one person in summer. It's absolutely fine. So I took myself off and I went up to Halifax, and I found myself in the middle of a flash mob, which was just fantastic when I was looking around the sites there. And then I went up to York. I actually had a conference to go to. I was running a conference session as part of the paid work that I do, but I spent an extra couple of days there just doing touristy things. So that was Roundtree campsite twice in 1 year. I couldn't believe I got in on the right dates as well, so I could go to this conference. That was brilliant. And then again in October, I took caravan off and I went to check out Morn Hill, just down in Winchester. That's was it about an hour and a half away from us where we live. So that was great. You know, took it off again. Just had a few days doing work stuff in the caravan to do something for myself. So I think that's where we're going to go in 2023. I suspect we won't get the boys out again. So I'll tell you in a year's time, but 2022 may have been the end of family caravanning as we know it, and that transition year. And then 2023 is much more of me doing stuff that I want to do as an individual, rather than looking after everybody else as their mum or their wife or whatever else. Will I sell the caravan? Probably not. Ask me again in 12 months. We'll see how much I use it this year, because it is a very expensive paperweight if it's just sat on the drive depreciating and nobody's using it. But in terms of going off for retreats on my own, you know, just taking myself off for a change of scene to reinvigorate the old grey matter, because it needs a lot of reinvigorating these days, is much easier with a caravan than it is just to take the van. The van's fine, but it's not very spacious, and you know, it doesn't have running water in the same sort of way that the caravan does. So much easier with the caravan. We'll see how much I use it. Come the beginning of 2024, I'll come back to you. I'll let you know. So coming up on the channel this year, that means there won't be any family caravanning stuff. Well, there might be. It'll come out with a big fanfare if I manage to persuade the kids to go anywhere. So there won't be any family caravanning stuff. If I go off on retreats and there's anything interesting to show you, of course I'll take you along. But if I'm just sat on my laptop working, that's not very exciting, is it? What we will do, though, I had a lot of fun at the show in October, specifically concentrating on smaller caravans. So, you know, I'm really into smaller and lightweight because, yeah, of course there are pros and cons, and I'll make a video about that. You know, it's nowhere near as spacious and lounging in here as some of the beautiful, huge twin axles. But then I also don't worry about where I'm going. You know, it's gone down so many country lanes because it's narrow. And, you know, it's short. I don't have to worry about what sort of pitch I'm going to find myself on, because there's always space for us. So more small caravanning videos, lightweight caravans. You know, I'm following the electric tow car debate with interest from a scientific point of view, because, you know, as a scientist, originally, actually, I'm an electrochemist, and, you know, electrochemists are the ones that first invented hydrogen fuel cells and lithium batteries and all that sort of stuff. That's the original science. Of course, it requires many other different specialties, and, you know, engineers and materials scientists and electronics people, and lots of different expertise to turn that science idea into a workable product. But anyway, from a science point of view, it's fascinating to me, so I'm following that debate. I'll also make you a video at some point about why I'm not waiting for hydrogen as a fuel, because it has huge pros for drivers, but in terms of infrastructure and using it at the population level, it's not good at all. So I'll try and explain that in one of these myth-busting videos I'll try and do later in the year. Anyway, so I'll be concentrating on some small caravan stuff, and that's what will be coming up in the next few weeks, because I'm still crazy busy with work, so I won't have time to record any of those sort of hydrogen or big caravan versus small caravan type videos. But I do have loads of footage that I half edited at the end of the October show, and I never quite got round to finishing putting that together. So all that stuff will come out across the next few weeks. And I've also got, you've probably seen on the channel, I'm building a playlist of motorway service areas, because as an adult on my own, especially when the kids were small, I really needed to know what sort of whether there were facilities in a service station before I pulled in, and you know, whether I could well, those sort of reverse out spaces if you're on your own are a nightmare, because usually you're sort of parked up against each other. You know, if you can imagine, there's one caravan and there's you and me as an adult sat at the front here trying to reverse this out without being able to see what's flying in here can be an absolute nightmare sometimes. You just can't see around the corners in most of these places. Hence, I started building a repository of drive-throughs of motorway service stations, and there's another one of those that will come out today. Those are really weird videos to know when to release, though, because it's part of the library. So it's not as if it's a normal vlog like this that you guys need an alert to, but you can't release a video without YouTube telling all your subscribers that you've released a video. So anyway, the repository's there if you want it, and if it says, you know, motorway service station update drive-through and you're not interested, just ignore it. That would be great. Right, so yeah, that's the update for now. I don't think I'm going to make it to the February show, which is sort of depressing, because I love the February show. It has this real, I don't know, energy about it, you know, because it's got more tents in, and spring's just about showing signs of springing, or at least you can think it's around the corner a bit. It just has this wonderful energy that I love about it, even though it's smaller than the October show and you don't tend to get many more releases. But anyway, sadly, I don't think I can make it, because I've still got lots of work on at the moment, which, as I said, is great, and I, you know, really appreciate it. It just means I've neglected you guys a bit. So that's got to be the end of the waffle. This is probably far too long a video already. Thanks for tuning in. Massive thanks to everybody who subscribes. Really wonderful to have you all here. If there's anything in particular you think it might be cool to feature on the channel, so anything you've been wondering about, you know, caravanning as a solo parent, or small caravans, nimble, able things, whether I have a problem with my door on the continental side, because yeah, it's on that side, that's the front, it's on that side, not that side. Anyway, drop it in the comments. It'd be great to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in, thanks for hanging out, lovely to have you here, and I guess I will see you in the next one. So bye for now, see ya.